Hi everyone. Hopefully it is a beautiful day wherever it is that you're logging in from. As you can see, it's a fabulous day here in northeastern Ohio. I did move our broadcasting location from my yoga platform to my deck with the hope that the buffering's a little bit better for those who tried last week. I'm not sure that it's anything that I can do on my end, but I thought just in case I would give it a try. So welcome to another B2K Periscope broadcast. Today we're talking about delivering effective feedback. But if you're new to broadcasting with me on Sundays, just a couple quick things. You can comment anytime, ask a question, say hey to someone else that's on, let us know where you're joining us from. You can also give hearts. It's a way to let people know that you agree with something or that you feel strongly about something. And you can give hearts just by tapping your screen, and little hearts will appear. And you can do that anytime you want to chime in, if you will. You can give it a try. So so if you want to just comment and say where you're logging in from, that's fine at any point. You can just say, hey, this is Christy and I'm broadcasting here from Ohio. I know several of my friends from Ohio have joined today as well from other states. So again, today we're going to be talking about delivering good feedback to kids in a way that doesn't shame them or blame them. And this has been a topic that Ashley and I have been talking about for several weeks now. If you read this week's blog, you will know a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, but I'm going to add two additional suggestions in terms of ways that we can give kids feedback, particularly give them feedback on how they're doing behaviorally without doing this sort of public shaming or this public display of either group or individual behavior. So again, if you haven't seen this week's blog, feel free to go back and catch it. There's lots of good resources and ideas. And Ashley is busy tweeting as I'm talking. And you'll find all the show notes at hashtag B2KCoach. So if you missed something or you don't know the link to the blog, just go onto Twitter and go to hashtag B2KCoach. And Ashley will have posted all the good stuff there that you can link to directly. So we've all seen these public displays of monitoring charts, of stoplights, of rainbows, of Superman skill sets that we have, like clothespins and clips. We might have elaborate charting systems with kids' names that we flip from one status that they're doing fine to a status where it's kind of a warning to a status where they're now in the red zone, which isn't a good thing like it might be in football. But it's just really this idea of giving kids feedback. So on the face of it, just like we talked last week, it's not a bad thing, this inherent notion of using these public charts and cards. Last week we talked about how it's a visual support and it can really give kids a way to understand what's going on and what to predict something that's quite unpredictable. And today we're talking about sort of a secondary motivation behind using public displays of behavior and monitoring systems, and that's to deliver feedback. And we know that feedback is critically important to learning at any stage, any age, any reason. So we want to still give feedback, but we want to do it in such a way that is respectful of the child and actually gives them information about what to do again, not to do again, or how to correct what they're up to. So effective feedback, many people will talk about it being targeted, systematic, or specific, and timely. So I'm going to touch on those three just really briefly in case you haven't thought about them in a while, or maybe it's your job to support other adults. They could be parents or caregivers, other teachers or colleagues, and you want to talk to them about not using these public displays, but you want to give them a replacement behavior. You want to say to them, we want to give kids feedback. So if you feel like it's important for kids to give feedback, maybe give some hearts or give a bit of a comment that says, yeah, if I didn't have feedback, I wouldn't know what to do right, wrong, in between. That said, how many of you have ever experienced feedback that sort of shut you down? And that could even be as an adult, or maybe you even remember a time when you were a kid and somebody was like critical of you in such a way that made you go, I'm never playing that sport again. I'm never going to try again. I'm never going to do fill in the blank, right? So there's this idea that feedback can be really powerful, but it can also be powerful in a way that keeps us from moving forward. So today we really want to think about, is our feedback helping kids know what they need to be doing, what they should be doing, what the correct desired response is, or are we just giving kind of feedback out there that might actually be shaming, blaming, making them shut down, maybe even just something as little as being a little bit more confused. And so if our feedback confuses kids, how is that helping them progress and to be more independent or more accurate? So again, we're going to hit 3 things quickly: targeted, specific, and timely. And then I'm going to add 2 more. So you'll leave with 5 things that you can remember that are ways to deliver effective feedback. So the first one, targeted. For me, that's kind of synonymous with being intentional, so that you have this really good match. There's a match between the kid, the situation, and the feedback, so that it all kind of makes sense. And as you listen to these 3, this targeted, this specific, and timely, you'll see that they're kind of interrelated. So targeted really has to do with being intentional, knowing why you're doing it and knowing how to do it, and then knowing the effect of it. So maybe at one time we started using some sort of timeout procedure, or maybe we started some sort of reward system, or maybe we were using the stoplight and the cards and the clips. But have we stepped back and said, is that having its intended effect? Is there actually collateral damage? So we really want to think about this intentionality, knowing what to do, how to do it, and if it's having its intended effect. When we think about feedback that is specific, I like to use the word personalized. It's just for me. And that means that it is relevant, that it makes sense to me. It doesn't matter if it makes sense to other people, but if the feedback is meaningful to me, then it's specific, it's personalized. It's something that will make a connection between my action and the particular consequence. And then I'll know what to do more of or less of in the future. When I think about timely, I really have to think about the developmental readiness of the child, but I also have to think about my readiness to deliver feedback well. So let's take both sides of that coin. Kids have different concepts of time as they age. And so younger kids have a very different and very limited concept of time than older children. That's why this notion of delaying the reward or waiting till later to get the reward or punishment has less effect on little kids. They don't really understand what later means, or what Friday is, or what's going to happen 3 steps from now. So when we think of the third way of giving effective feedback, and we want to be timely, we really have to think about the developmental nature and readiness of the child, as well as their chronological age. But again, I could be older, but my concept of time is still not fully developed. So we need to make sure that there is a good match again between how we deliver feedback and the kid's readiness. Now let's take the other side of that coin of readiness and our ability to deliver a feedback that's effective. We got to think about our nonverbal, we have to think about our pace, we have to think about the tone of our voice. What messages are we sending to the child that we may not have intended to send? So we have to be ready. So the time might be now, but I might be so upset that I need to at least take 1 breath before I say something. Take 1 breath before I swoop in and deliver some sort of feedback or consequence. So those 3 things, just real quickly, and you can comment or hit the hearts as I go. Which one is your favorite? Which one do you find is the most you get the most out of it? It's the most effective. So is it when you're being targeted, you're being very intentional, you know how to do it, why to do it, when to do it, all that good stuff? Or is it the second one, when you're really specific, you're very descriptive, you're very personalized, it's very relevant to the child? Is that when you find that you're most effective? Or is it the third, when you are really consciously thinking about the timeliness? Is this the right time to give the feedback? Have I given feedback in enough time that the kid can still pair it with their actions and their feelings. So those are the first three. And again, we talk about them a bit in this past week's blog when Ashley and I were trying to give replacement behaviors to using public displays of children's behavior and their performance. So that's targeted, specific, and timely. So let's add two more so that we leave with a handful of replacement behaviors. And again, you might be in the place where you're supporting other adults. And so anything that I can share with you that might be synonyms or a different way to help them understand that we're giving kids feedback so that they can be more effective the next time is what we're looking for. So the fourth replacement behavior, if you will, or way to deliver effective feedback other than using public displays is another S. And I'm kind of just calling this one being supportive. There's kind of different variations of what you could call it, but what you're really saying to the kid is, in this moment when I'm delivering the feedback, however that comes, is that I understand that this stuff, this ability to regulate, right? This ability to have impulse control, this ability to wait your turn, that it's not easy and that it takes practice. And so a very supportive way in which we deliver feedback lets kids know that we understand that this is not easy and that we don't expect them to get it right every time. Even though we do, we don't, right? We can't expect kids not to have a meltdown. We can't expect kids to always make the right choice. It's kind of developmentally impossible. So we really want to make sure that they understand that we are supportive and that we understand this is going to take practice. We also want them to understand that together we can maybe find more positive solutions, more positive ways to respond. But that might have to happen collaboratively. We can't just say, go sit over there and when you can get your act together, you can come back. But rather, together, can we find a way that is a more positive response? Can we reach consensus? Then also when I'm thinking about supportive, I really want to think about that this is a time for learning. This is a time that I need to think about the timeliness, right? But I want to make sure that kids are really ready to hear my message and that I'm clear about what the message is. So it's not a time that I'm going to restate all the rules and, explain all the consequences and all the options for their behavior, but really in a very succinct way, let them know that I care about them and that this is important and that it's important that I support them as they practice. So this idea of being supportive is what I would add as the fourth way to give effective feedback. It's really letting kids know that you're there, that you understand this is difficult, that you know that sometimes we mess up even when we are trying not to mess up, and that it's going to take some practice, and that I need to find different ways, and maybe together we can come up with a different way to respond. Not always my way, and maybe not the way you chose, because again, I'm trying to let you know that it's the emotion is okay, but how you dealt with it, not so okay. So what could we do differently? And we have to sort of accept a broader range of what could we do differently. And that brings us to our fifth way to deliver effective feedback. And this is another thing that Ashley and I unpacked in this week's blog. And this is sort of this notion of being more private. So it has to do a little bit with being specific, where you're being personalized and being very thoughtful about the child and their readiness. But there might be times where you do want to have some sort of monitoring system. It could be a visual monitoring system. It could be a check-in verbally, me and the child checking in together. It could be a self-monitoring where the child is checking in with themselves to go, how am I doing? And that might need to be in some sort of, again, visual display. And in that instance, if we do want to use a graph, a chart, a smiley face system, a thumbs up, a thumbs down, a rainbow, whatever it might be that's symbolic, as long as we know that the child understands that symbolism, it's still okay to use those visual supports as long as we remember that we're trying to keep it private. This is just for this kid. We don't need everyone in the world to know. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor's office and they, ask you a bunch of questions while there's people in the waiting room, and you're like, really, does everyone need to know this about me? Maybe, you have to get on the scale, and the scale is in the hallway, and people are walking by, and you're like, I don't even want to know my weight, let alone, everyone around me. So it's this idea that we need feedback, we need information, but do we really want to know it in a broad public way? So that's our fifth way of giving feedback, is really thinking about being a little bit more private. So all of these, again, go together. So we talked about 5 things. We talked about being targeted, which is being intentional, specific, which is being personalized, being timely, which is really being sure that we're ready and the kid's ready. And then we added 2 more. Being supportive, letting the kids know that we're there, that we're going to help them and find a positive way to respond. And when we need to show them in some visual way or in some sort of monitoring, we're going to do it in a way that's very private and very respectful of the child, so that that feedback actually makes a difference. So that's really quick and fast at you, but these aren't things that we haven't thought about before, right? So these are things that maybe we need to bring back to a higher level of consciousness, or maybe we need to talk to others as we explore replacement behaviors to public displays of children's behavior. So speaking of behavior, I'm going to leave you today with a call to action. So again, while I'm kind of prepping you for your call to action, you are welcome to comment and say which of the 5 strategies you find either to be something you really need to improve upon, something you want to think more about, or something that is your strength. Being targeted, being specific, being timely, being supportive, and being personalized or private. So the call to action, yesterday I had the honor of attending Grace Lee Boggs' memorial service in Detroit. And one of the themes of that all the participants shared was that she would always ask them difficult questions. She would always leave them with a question or a challenge. And so no matter what, if you visited her house, if you came over to where she was speaking, if you were on the picket line with her, she would always ask you to think more about something. So I thought, in the spirit of Grace Lee today, I would challenge you with the following call to action. So as you think about delivering effective feedback, that could be to your adult students, that could be to your dog, that could be to the children and families that you serve. What will you continue to grapple with? So that's your question in the spirit of Grace Lee Boggs. What question about delivering effective feedback will you continue to grapple with? We've given you 5 replacement behaviors. Do you need to think more about which of those are more effective? Do you know if you're being intentional? Do you know if the system that's currently in place is even working? Are you going to grapple with that? Are you going to grapple with this idea of how do I make things more supportive so that I can really let kids know that I understand that this is going to take practice? Can I grapple with my own desire for them to speed up in terms of development and have fewer meltdowns? Or can I grapple with this idea that when you're young, this is hard work and this is your work, and that I need to be there to support you through your work? So that is today's B2K Periscope broadcast. As always, I love to see that you've joined me. Feel free to share and repost this broadcast with others. And again, the challenge, the walk away as you're signing off today, is to really think about what will I continue to grapple with in terms of delivering effective feedback. And again, you might check out Twitter on hashtag B2KCoach. You might check out Tuesday's blog that Ashley and I wrote last week. And you can certainly download one of our practice points that gives more ideas about how to give more private feedback if and when you do need to use some sort of behavioral charting or clipping system. So there you go. It's another Sunday. Hopefully, if you watch sports, your team is doing well today. Hopefully the sun is out and that you have a fabulous week and that you continue to grapple with things. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next Sunday.